Welcome back to the Jamal Thomas Morning Show. My name is Jamal Thomas. I am the host of your show. If you guys have been digging this content, give it a like, share it, subscribe to it. We're trying to hit 40,000 by the end of the year. I know we can do it. I believe. I need you to believe also and hit that subscribe button. Also, I want to thank all of you who are here, whatever you're doing this morning. I want to thank you for listening to this voice in your ear. I am here Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I would love it if you join me. I want to bring in our guests. Oh, by the way, if you really find that you dig this content, give it a like, share it, subscribe to it. You can also support through PayPal, Patreon, or for that matter, Super Chats. All chats or stickers will be read, providing they're not racist, sexist, or bigoted. Even if you take the piss out of me, I will read it. And I am joined by a great friend of the show, Daniel McAdams. Daniel McAdams is Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. Daniel, welcome to the show, man. How you doing this morning?
Good morning, Jamal. How are you?
I am doing great, better that you are with me. Let's start off at the very beginning. I've asked this question to pretty much everybody. What do you think about the results of this election? And why do you think it turned out this way?
The results of the election, well, I think there are a few obvious things. One is the Harris administration's position on the Middle East. I mean, if you look in places where this is a good metric, I would say, because if you remember in the primaries, when Joe Biden went to certain states, Michigan, I think being one of them, and a few others in that area, there were a bunch of no votes, the NVs, the people that refused to endorse him. And they did it as a protest against the Middle East policy of his administration. Now, if you go back and look at Kamala Harris and how she did in those areas, she lost by that margin of no votes. I saw a chart. I don't have it in front of me, but I think that's one good metric. They were just simply powerless to stop the genocide in Gaza and the killing in Lebanon. I think that was a huge factor. And also the campaign of Kamala Harris was atrocious, and she may be a nice person, but she was a terrible candidate. So I think all of that and people's just sort of general fatigue with this administration led them to go in big numbers for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you're looking at, like, for example, when you're looking at the exit polling, well, there are a few things in exit polling that's pretty fascinating. For one, Kamala Harris got 10 million less votes than Joe Biden. There's that. Trump increases margins by 1 million votes. There's that. He increases margins among African Americans, Hispanics, Arabs, white women. Like across the board, he basically increased his margins to rather astonishing degrees. I mean, there was the belief that Republicans were mathematically disallowed from winning the popular vote because of the various demographics that typically vote Democrat. He knocked that out the water, that particular model. So look, I agree with you. Democrats are somewhat bewildered by this. What do you think they are going to do going forward? I want to get into the people that Donald Trump is choosing, but I'm curious about where do you think the Democratic Party goes from here? I mean, they ran on a pro-war transatlantic gang going after pro Israel genocide, um, and yet they're attacking progressives, despite the fact they didn't run a progressive campaign. She ran around the country with Liz Cheney as if this is going to somehow A, inspire her base, and B, get disaffected Republicans, which didn't seem to be that many considering the degree to which Liz Cheney got beat in her own race. Like this strategy just seemed to be dead on arrival, and yet none of them could see it. Where do you think they go from here?
I don't know where they go because, as you point out, they ran as the pro-war party. No, the pro-war party never wins. The pro-peace party wins even if they're lying through their teeth. That's one thing. And I mean, the Democratic Party of my grandparents. I'm talking about Depression era Democratic Party. They were for the working man. Now, we may not have agreed with everything that they espoused at the time, but they were clearly for the working man. The Democratic Party today despises the working man. They're for special interests. They're for the rights of very fringe types of people. They're not for, you can't have this kind of inflation, this kind of economy, and profess to be caring about the working man. And for better or worse, Trump is a better campaigner when it comes to this. He connects with working people extremely well. He ran a smart campaign in that he brought in people, bringing in, I mean, you're so right, Jamal, bringing in Liz Cheney. Nobody's going to be excited about that,
Right.
It's just going to give us nightmares about her dad, shooting you in the woods or something. It's bad. But you bring in people like RFK and Tulsi Gabbard and Elon Musk, people that are exciting and interesting people. It garners interest. Whereas the Kamala Harris campaign brought in just tired old celebrities who say the same things every single time, and they have basically no political knowledge whatsoever. So terrible campaign. Trump was a much better campaigner, as you rightly point out. His numbers with Hispanic and African American male voters, especially, were tremendous. So he connected with a lot of people.
That's an understatement. Yeah, I agree with you. And you're absolutely right. I was looking for this clip of, I think this is it. Okay, right here. Just to back you up on what you were saying here. This is Chuck
Already
Schumer.
won a large percentage of those people over. On the other hand, Trump is so new that this is the second point, for every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2, 3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois.
That didn't work. That didn't work. But it gets across like that was their idea. As you pointed out, it used to be the party of the working man. This is the party of the working class, whether you agree with them or not. They were, at the very least, that was their point of view and their perspective. And somewhere in the 80s, maybe around Jimmy Carter, definitely during Bill Clinton, they went with this notion that we are sick of the left. We are sick of having to deal with stuff like trying to get healthcare, education, Social Security. And so if we can switch our coalition to moderate Republicans, in this case, let's go with Liz Cheney. And now we have ability to see if we can get these moderate Republicans that Donald Trump alienated. Meaning Kamala Harris didn't end up with Liz Cheney by an accident. This was Democratic policy as espoused by Chuck Schumer to effectively disempower the working class in order to go for these kind of upper echelon Republicans. And by the way, they did get those upper echelon. If you look at the exit polls, higher incomes, higher degrees went to Democrats. They just couldn't replace the working class.
Well, they discovered that there's money there. What the Democratic Party officials noticed is that there's a hell of a lot of money going to the military-industrial complex. If you tie in with that, you're fine. They're fine with the wars because the wars bring in tons of money. The same is true with the pro-Israel lobby. They will finance your campaign. AIPAC, it does not discriminate, right? If you do their bidding, they will finance your campaign to the teeth. And so they realize that. So screw the working class. What have they done for us lately? Go back to your jobs and leave us alone. We've got a country to run, And so I think that's a lot of the Trump vote. People they felt so alienated by this party that hates their guts. It hates working people's guts.
Yep. And simultaneously believes that those working people owe them their vote either way. It's pretty astonishing.
Or if you don't vote for him, you ain't black.
Right. You should see. I've been fascinated by what's been on MSNBC. They have been attacking people left and right. Joanne Reed was like, "You Hispanics that voted for Trump, when your family members get deported, you own it." Roland Martin has been attacking Muslims and Arabs because they didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Like, these people have lost their minds, as opposed to putting it where it belongs, on the candidate. It is your candidate's job to get those votes. And for whatever reason, Democratic Party is the only party that believes people owe them their votes. It's the weirdest thing in the world to me. I want to go to Trump's people, right? Trump, who came in saying, "I'm going to end wars, not start them." And names started trickling out in regards to who he was bringing to his administration. He said, "Hey, don't worry, I'm not bringing in Pompeo and Nikki Haley." People's like, "Thank you." He's not bringing in Pompeo and Nikki Haley. And then he brings in one lunatic after the next that is just as neoconish as they are. So Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, They're saying Michael Rubio for Secretary of State. That apparently has not been confirmed. And Tulsi Gabbard is apparently agitating to try to get that position so Rubio doesn't get it. So we'll see how that goes. Elise Stefanik, UN ambassador. Again, all of these people, with the exception of maybe Tulsi Gabbard, are neocons on the issue, especially on Israel. Pro-war is an understatement. Marco Rubio made this argument to Code Pink. Basically, I don't care how many women and children get killed. I'm just going to blame Hamas for it. So, my conscience is clear. It's just astonishing stuff. Here's the other one. Susie Wiles, she's going to head his campaign team. I don't really have any feelings about that. And then you get to Daniel Ratcliffe, who they're calling head of the CIA. Ratcliffe is interesting because Ratcliffe is a heavy UFO guy. And he was one of the people who was exposing the Trump and Russia thing being a fraud. Basically, this is nonsense. Also, this guy, Pete Hegseth, and just to give the audience a taste of him, let's play this clip of him to let the audience see who Trump chose for this role. Again, that is somewhat terrifying. And the idea that they're making him Secretary of Defense is disturbing.
Sometimes you have moments, Stephen. I happen to believe that we can't kick the can down the road any longer in trying to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. They used the killing of Soleimani as an excuse to say, we're scrapping the Iran deal. We all know they were scrapping it anyway. So what better time than now to say, we're starting the clock. You've got a week. You've got X amount of time before we start taking out your energy production facilities. We take out key infrastructure. We take out your missile sites. We take out nuclear development. We take out.
That's terrifying. Like, that guy's a lunatic. And for one, like, how do you plan on doing that? So what? You're going to run bombing campaigns on Iran? And I would imagine he's working with Israel in order to do these bombing campaigns. Because look, this is what Netanyahu wanted, right? The U.S. to be functionally involved in this kind of hot war with Iran. Iran has already said that they're going to hit Israel. They are very clear. True Promise 3, they keep saying it's coming, it's coming, it's going to happen. Also, the other complication is that Iran and Russia are signing a mutual security agreement that will be out soon, and we don't even know what's in it. But at the very least, if it's a security agreement, Russia is going to be helping Iran to the hilt, and it's going to basically deal with any kind of existential crisis that goes in against Iran. If this lunatic and Trump are deciding we are going to have another pressure campaign against Iran, all hell is going to break loose in the Middle East. That guy's terrifying to me. Give me your take on this. Trump said he's going to end wars. How the hell is he picking these neocons that effectively going to start potentially the Third World War?
That's like I'm saying, hey, Jamal, I'm going to stop drinking. Let's go to the bar, man. Right? I mean, right. It makes no sense. A couple of things. I've been told by someone who knows, for what it's worth, that he does pick people that he thinks are good on TV. And this guy, Hegseth, is a television. He's a Fox TV news commentator. Now, he was in the military. That's true. He started an organization called Vets for Freedom that actually in the late 2000s, the late aughts, they were lobbying Congress for us to stay in Iraq and stay in Afghanistan. That was their thing. And here you have Trump, who said those were stupid wars we never should have been in. The guy he hires to run the Pentagon was lobbying for us to stay in there forever. He was completely against us getting out of Afghanistan, something that Trump wanted to do desperately in the very last days of his administration. Now, if you go to someone like Mike Waltz, the interesting thing, we bring up Liz Cheney and the Cheneys, who went against Trump and was supposedly the secret, they were going to be the secret weapon that dethrones Trump. Well, Mike Waltz worked for Dick Cheney. He worked for Donald Rumsfeld. He was in that world. He was in the Bush neocon world. That's where he comes from. So these people are, and I was thinking about this earlier. Donald Trump is very talented as an entertainer. That's really what he's known for. And to me, it almost seems like he's putting together his entertainment show. In his mind, it's almost like he goes to AI. Hey, give me a tough-looking defense secretary. That's what I want. So the dude's got tattoos everywhere. He's will, you know, he keeps healthy. There's that guy. Okay, let me see. I need some rodeo clowns. So let's do a Office of Government Efficiency and do people that have, you know, like the rodeo clowns that run around and the bulls could easily kill them, but they just kind of outrun the bulls.
Right.
So these guys have no power. You know, I need a court jester. So you get Marco Rubio, who everyone knows is not very smart. So you have your court jester. I mean, he's like sort of filling these roles with his idea of what a good TV show would look like, a TV show about the presidency, you know, and it's it would be funny if it wasn't terrifying, because as you point out, people like Hegseth has some very, very terrifying views. You know, I don't care what people have for their personal religion or if they have no religion, but when you bring in a religion that encourages the end of the world, that encourages the apocalypse, because you feel like it somehow fulfills your personal views, that's a big problem. That's separation.
Dig into
of church
that
and
for
state.
me, because the audience may not know what you mean on that. This is him wanting to build a mound in Jerusalem in order to bring back Jesus or something like that, right? Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's a central tenet of Christian Zionism, which he follows extensively. Anyone could go on Twitter X and look at a few things. Michael Tracy, for example, who I think is an exceptional researcher and journalist, he's put out several clips of things that Hegseth has been saying that are terrifying. Again, I don't care what your religion is, if you have one or if you don't, but when you bring that to the public, you know, and you're encouraging the destruction of the world because you think that somehow you'll be risen up to heaven. By the way, all the Jews get killed who don't convert at the end, so it doesn't end well for them. Yeah, you know, and I'm sure they're laughing about this because they think it's goofy, but they're going to let this guy, you know, support them. This is a terrifying thing. And then, by the way, sorry to interrupt you, Jamal, but then one thing we forgot is Mike Huckabee. He's the guy who says Palestinians do not exist. There's no such thing. He's going to be Trump's ambassador to Israel. So how much do we think that he's going to be a fair broker here? Stop killing Palestinian people. Are you kidding? They don't even exist. Make sure that they don't exist. Finish them.
I mean, but is there that big of a difference between psychopaths or sociopaths that Joe Biden have in his admin? John Kirby, Matthew Miller. Matthew Miller is particularly disgusting and has defended pretty much everything. Patel, Anthony Blinken, Hashtin, the one that was an IDF soldier that they sent in order to be the envoy for Lebanon. Think about that for the moment. Like, Israel is slaughtering the Lebanese women and children hand over fist. And Joe Biden is like, yeah, I'm going to send somebody who used to be an IDF soldier to be the envoy for that same Lebanon. So it's like, as bad as these people are they really that much worse than Blinken, who goes into the Middle East and say, I am a Jew, as one of his first proclamations when he gets there, basically telling everybody where his standing is, and it damn sure wasn't going to be some kind of best interest of America. Like, none of these people seem to be working in the best interest of America regarding foreign policy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Biden's people were more banal, you know, the Hannah Arendt banality of evil. You know, they were sort of colorless people. Now, so they brought in the clowns. Now they have the people with the tattoos who talk loud, and so you probably have a point. You know, who knows? I mean, my good friend Colonel Doug McGregor was on Judge Napolitano's show yesterday, and he says he believes that war is imminent. You know, the people in the Middle East are watching what's happening. They look at how this administration is coming together, even in places like Egypt that have not been restive for a long time. They're looking at this and they're saying, this is the United States that's going to start attacking. We need to be ready for it.
Well, that's the wild part too, right? This is not the same world that Trump left. Meaning, when Trump left, he was working with the Abraham Accords. Iran was somewhat isolated. JCPOA had fallen. Well, he basically killed the JCPOA. He ended it. North Korea was somewhat isolated, even though Trump was working with them where the missiles weren't necessarily being fired into the Sea of Japan. Joe Biden gets in, all of that goes to pot. And so you have an Israel that is radically isolated from the rest of the globe, with the United States being the only country working with it. Maybe Germany, but Germany is always on the wrong side of history. So there's that. You get Iran that is no longer isolated. It's integrated into BRICS. It has a deal, or at the very least an arrangement, with Saudi Arabia where they're not at each other's throats. And the countries that Trump was working with prior they are not interested in this kind of Middle Eastern war with Iran. So this pressure strategy, I don't know how that's going to work without the other countries in that region assisting him in that pressure strategy. If anything, those countries are against Israel. One last point. They went to the Arab Muslim conference. And one of the speeches, and many of the speeches, were effectively like, something needs to be done. We can't allow Israel to continue to do this. Bashar al-Assad even went out and effectively said, we have the will, or we have the capability to do it. We don't have the will to do it. We need to start, basically get the will to use our powers in order to change the context of the situation on the ground. Do you think they're going to do it, though? I mean, that's the rub. I've heard Colonel McGregor talk about this, where he's mentioned Turkey and everything else. I don't believe Turkey is going to get involved like that, especially if the other countries don't also get involved. But what's your take on this? Do you think there's a level of blood that they say this is too much? Or for that matter, if Trump comes in with this kind of Bigfoot approach to go after Iran, do you think they would say, no, this is too much? I guess I'm asking, is there a level of subservience that the Arab countries or Muslim countries just won't accept?
Yeah, you have to wonder in places like Jordan that have been, as you point out, the purple word is subservient, absolutely. Yeah. But you have a population that's largely Palestinian that is not, obviously not happy with what's happening. At what point does that get unstable? And can the U.S. glue Humpty Dumpty together again if it does get unstable? You know, so you have, I mean, look, you're asking about the unity in that world. Why do you think they had to kill Gaddafi? You know, because that's what he was all about. You know, why do you think they had to try to regime change Assad? Because that's what he was all about. As soon as you, and it goes back through, you know, through history. Anyone who tries to unite the Arabs and the other Muslims in the Middle East finds themselves at the receiving end of a U.S. bullet or knife in that case. God. Anyway. So there's a danger, but I think there is a point where that's going to happen. But there's also one other thing, Jamal, that we have to think about, which is U.S. capabilities. Now, we're speaking loudly, but our big stick, I'm sorry, we've given it all to Ukraine. We've given it all to Israel. We can't build missiles anymore. We do not have a military. We don't have a proper military industrial complex. All we have is a bunch of lobbyists, who steal money. We don't make good weapons anymore. We've seen that in the battlefields of Ukraine. So even if they wanted to, they may have a will, but they probably don't have a way. And we're broke, by the way, so we can't start making stuff.
Well, see, that's the other terrifying part, right? Like I always say, trying to win a drawing game is the fastest way to lose it. And not accepting a loss sometimes make it that much more catastrophic. I mean, I would argue Ukraine is that way. It's like you have these big ideas without the capability of affecting those big ideas. It's like your reach exceeds your grasp in a certain way. My fear is that happens also with neocons coming in, because neocons don't care, right? They don't care about the budget. They don't care that these things are kind of outlandish. They are often willing to go through these military projects. I would argue Netanyahu and what he's doing in Israel. Yeah, you're killing a lot of people, but you're still fighting in Gaza after a year. You're still fighting in southern Lebanon and apparently taking heavy losses in southern Lebanon. You're getting hit from Yemen, of all places, despite the fact that Yemen has been bombed for the last 10, 15 years. Like, meaning, and Iran has shown that it can cut through your air defense like butter. So you are, despite the fact that you are vulnerable and known to be vulnerable, you continue on with this kind of genocidal campaign, neocons. And so my fear is that regardless of what Trump has said, he doesn't get the deal that he wants in Russia, meaning any deal that he gets for Russia has to be on Russian terms because, again, they have the whip hand. And unless you're willing to go to nuclear weapons to change the context of that, you're stuck with what you got. And the same thing with Iran. I don't have this belief that the U.S. is going to be able to dominate Iran in the way that they're having this conversation about dominating Iran. I just don't buy it. I get the sense that this is going to be like another Ukraine, where they're like, oh, we're going to destroy the Russian economy. Oh, we're going to destroy the Russian military. And you find out after 3 years, okay, that didn't happen. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. And as you pointed out, with $35 trillion in debt. So how does that work?
Yeah, the perfect embodiment of the neocon philosophy and world outlook is when Karl Rove said, when we act, we create our own realities. And they truly believe that. You know, the world is on fire all around them. And they believe, they're they're served a pile of feces and they believe that it's delicious
Yeah.
dessert. You know, they literally believe that they create reality in their minds, and it's always turned out badly. And I don't know why they keep getting new chances.
But that's the wild part. When Donald Trump was having a conversation with Tucker Carlson, he explicitly spent like an hour talking about how these wars haven't served us. They're wasting out $10 million or $10 billion. We don't get anything out of it. Like, eventually we leave the country empty-handed with nothing but debt and dead people. And then to go a week later and fill his administration with people like this. Is it fair to say that this is a betrayal of his base, of America broadly, and effectively on this issue, he is fundamentally lied? Or is it too soon to come up with that assessment? From my point of view, people of policy.
Well, I would do two things. One, be more serious. One, be a little more lighthearted. The serious one is that he was funded by Miriam Adelson. And you get a lot of money you get a lot of action for $100 million. Hell, I'd hire some neocons if someone gave me $100 million. You know? And the other thing is that, you know, this is the Trump reality show too. I mean, he's got all these clowns running around talking about war, and he's the guy in the middle saying, you know, you're fired, get out of here. You know, like he did with Bolton. That guy's a nut job. This guy's an idiot. This guy's a moron. So it's sort of, I mean, in a way, you can't blame him. He's putting out entertainment for a dumbed down America that thrives on entertainment. You know, we are idiocracy right now, and he's the perfect fit for that.
Yeah, it's dumbed down up until the point where these guys have to make a decision on war and peace. Which is a clown show up until that point, from my point of view. He's such a wild card. I don't know. It's hard for me to figure out what Trump is going to do. But to be fair, I had no idea what Kamala Harris was going to do either. Like, she was a blank slate on the issue of foreign policy. So it's like there was no way to really go. It's like anywhere you went to, you were kind of burned or kind of in the dark on what that stuff looked like. But these picks are terrifying to me. And I really hope the Marco Rubio thing is wrong. I hope he adds in Tulsi Gabbard as Secretary of Defense. Secretary of Defense is not supposed to be a bellicose maniac. It's actually supposed to be a State Department that is trying to bring hostilities down. Gabbard or even RFK would be a better steward for that position than Marco Rubio, but we will see. Rubio is just another blanket from my point of view. Daniel, I'm going to give you the last word before we close it.
Well, I hope you're right on Rubio and Tulsi. Tulsi is not perfect, but she also could stand up to the other. She's a military person. She understands that world. And let's hope that would be one bright spot. I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah. Daniel McAdams. He is Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity. You can learn more about Daniel's work at the Ron Paul Institute for Peace and Prosperity by going to ronpaulinstitute.org. Daniel, if McGregor is ever open to coming on to the show, I would love to have him. I've followed him for a very long time. The man is brilliant. As a historian, as a military mind, I've always appreciated his conversation on this stuff. He has been one of those strong anti-war voices and critics of this kind of, you know, orthodoxy that we've gone with. Also, he knows Trump, and he's pointed out that despite all of this, that Donald Trump has a bias towards not having war. But I got to be honest, the people that Donald Trump has chosen, it does not give me that sense. But I could be wrong. I could be absolutely wrong. Man, thank you for this. I really appreciate you joining me.
Thanks, Jamal. Take care.
All right. I am going to take a quick break.